Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking about the Every Student Belongs rule, which, as part of the Oregon Department of Education's initiatives to support student mental health and well-being from an equity-centered and strengths-based viewpoint. The Every Student Belongs rule prohibits the use of or the display of hate symbols, including the noose, the symbols of neo-Nazi hate, and the battle flag of the Confederacy. We have been lucky enough to have student leaders who have supported the implementation of this rule from day one. And today we're going to invite some of those student leaders to come with us and share their ideas and reflections about how to make Every Student Belongs not just a rule, but a living, breathing support to a healthy school community that allows students, staff, and faculty to be truly who they are in our school environments. And so I'm going to ask our students to go ahead and turn their cameras on briefly, and we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. First of all, I'm Kara, and I work for the Oregon Department of Education as the Community Engagement and Wellness Specialist, and my pronouns are they, them, theirs. I'm going to pass along to MJ to share her name, pronouns, grade, and district.
Hi, my name is MJ. My pronouns are she, her, and I go to Southland School District and I'm a senior.
Thank you so much, MJ. Daniel, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, my name's Daniel. I'm a student in Beaverton School District, and I use he, him pronouns.
Thank you. Inlay.
Hi, my name is Inlay. I'm a senior in the Hermiston School District, and my pronouns are she, her, hers.
Thank you so much. And Abdi.
Hi, my name is Abdirahim Mahmoud. I am a senior in the Tiger to Walton School District, and my pronouns are he, him.
Thank you so much, everyone. We are so glad to have you here tonight and so excited to hear a little bit more about you and what you are bringing to your school communities. I'd like to ask Daniel if you wouldn't mind joining me to talk a little bit about what do you think a safe and healthy school looks, sounds, and feels like?
Yeah, so I kind of have a two-part answer to this. I think the first thing that's super important within our schools to create a safe and healthy environment in school, primarily for next year, will be mental health supports. As we've seen from this past year, the majority of students in public schools are fully online, and more recently, they've been transitioning to in-person. But the majority of students are online, and with that comes social disconnect, and it comes isolation from different people, your peers, different staff in the school, different teachers. So there will be a rise of mental health issues seen within our schools. So we need to be proactively addressing this issue by implementing mental health supports within our schools to address the incoming class next year and help with that process there. The second thing would be another aspect of creating safe and healthy schools is a safe and healthy school has established norms. With norms and repetition comes comfort. And once you've established that and students know what to expect from the environment in their classroom, which is why I think the Every Students Belong rule relating to hate symbols is so great, is because once students understand the norms, they understand what's appropriate, and you're less likely to have social bias incidents that involve others and result in issues that need to be resolved later. So establishing norms and creating mental health supports for next year especially is very important in establishing a safe and healthy school. Thanks for asking.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate that perspective. I think it's so valuable to be reminded of the way norms play a role in us feeling safe in our environment and how that can actually promote students' mental health. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Inlay, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind also joining us and sharing a little bit about your thoughts about a safe and healthy school and how it looks, sounds, and feels.
For me, what a safe and healthy school looks like ultimately depends on the individual, but there are many aspects to it. And one of them is being open and honest with your students, acknowledging what's going on in the world. And many times, current events are a big part of mental health and they do take a toll. Seeing those constant news articles and news titles popping up on your phone, on TV, wherever you go, they're there. And it's a lot of pressure. And many times in the school area, we don't focus on them and acknowledge them because, in many cases, these issues that are going on in the world are affecting the students. Whether it be you or your classmate, there are constant judgment going on, even if you don't realize it. And many times, being vulnerable is hard in the school setting, and having that safe space and knowing that there are teachers there for you is a big part. So, making sure that students are comfortable showing their emotions, being comfortable with expressing themselves is a big part, and making them feel accepted rather than excluded or feel that their voice isn't validated. And going with that, mental health support is big. Many times, students don't receive the resources they need due to income or because of the location they're at, whether it be because counselors are busy and booked, therapists are booked, or it's just a barrier for your family. And at times, your parents aren't accepting. So, having those resources available for both students and teachers is important because if our teachers are overloaded, they won't be able to provide the support students need. So, making sure that they know where the support is crucial to having a safe and healthy school. So, yeah.
Thank you. And like, I really appreciate that perspective. I think so often it's easy to forget that you can't pour from an empty cup, as the saying goes. So we need to make sure that our teachers have the support they need so our students can have the support they need. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about what does it look like for you when a teacher gives you space to be vulnerable and allows that to happen? And how does that help you feel more mentally healthy at school?
At times, it depends for the person, but for me personally, it's having the connection with my classmates too, and addressing that you're in a vulnerable state rather than kind of brushing it off and creating unnecessary tension, and just allowing the setting to be a free judgment zone and having your opinion be yours and be validated rather than someone trying to just like put their opinion in it, because honestly, one's own mental state is what matters in the moment. Even if yours isn't being affected, we have to keep the others in mind. So, just creating first the teacher student connection is big. And then making sure that the classmates are comfortable with each other is also important.
I love that. I think we can't overestimate the importance of community and community with our teachers, community with each other. I think that's really beautiful. Thank you so much, Inlay. MJ, I'm wondering if you want to jump in here and tell us a little bit about what you think makes a safe and healthy school.
Yeah, I think one of the important things that we haven't really touched on that a lot of our individual projects touches on is the idea that if a student comes to an administrator or a teacher, they know that they feel validated and they know that they're going to be heard and respected in that conversation. Like Inlay was adding that it's like to show emotion and to, do the head nods and make sure that you establish norms in the conversation and go over boundaries with the student when they're sharing personal stories and personal things that's happened to them. It's also really important that we have standards and rules across the district. So as students are, growing up through your district in elementary school, in middle school, in high school, they know the process of dealing with incidences that are of, of racist incidents or just incidents of bias in general, so that they can easily access those and, help the school grow in equity as a whole. Another important thing that I wanted to touch on was the idea of being open and real when things outside of your school happens. I think Inlay touched on this a little bit, but how when you talk about major events in class, it provides learning opportunities for the students. And a lot of times these conversations either aren't carried out in a way that are, set up for them to learn at home, or they're just not carried out at all. So it's important that we have those opportunities during the school day after a major event happens.
Wow, thank you so much, MJ. I really appreciate that. I think it's so easy to forget that history is happening all around us, and it's not just the stuff that maybe happened a really long time ago that's so important for us to learn from, but we've got to learn from what's happening around us now. So I really appreciate you bringing that into the space and sharing that with everyone. And Abdi, I'm wondering if you might want to jump in and share a little bit about what a healthy, safe and healthy school looks like for you.
Just bouncing off what everybody said, a school that listens, a school that has transparency, a school that understands not to tokenize their minority populations, a school that gets in their head that oftentimes, you're not going to find the perfect solution for every problem. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try multiple different avenues. The main issue that I've had over my 4 years of being in high school is just the slow process of everything, because everyone feels like they have to have the perfect thing. Everyone feels like they can't make mistakes. And if they do make mistakes, it's the end of the world. But it's really not. Making mistakes is how you truly become better. So I think those, and like the slowness of these things has caused, finally 4 years later, now we're actually getting to the place where conversations and discussions are being had. But this is something that could have been, fast forward, and it could have happened 2 years or 3 years earlier. Who knows? But I think that's all my say.
Wow, I am going to be walking away from this with so much inspiration already, and we haven't even gotten to y'all's really ideas yet. I think it's hard to not sit here and think about the ways your work or your suggestions connect to each other. But I think before we get into that discussion more deeply, I would love to jump off and start talking about what ideas you guys suggest school leaders consider, what your experience has been like in implementing those ideas, and how school leaders can involve students in their implementation. And I would love to jump in with MJ, if you wouldn't mind, and start talking a little bit about what idea you want to bring to the table.
Yeah, so my school district this year started an equity council. This is a really important group that I was proud to be a part of. I think the major thing that's important as all of our ideas is that students were involved from the very beginning. Um, and that goes through all of our ideas. So for the Equity Council, the students were ones that push for our district to address equity in our school district, and then we were part of forming the council and forming what it was going to look like. So on the council itself, you would be the Equity Council, or you could do an Equity Committee, would have a main council that would represent all shareholders in your district. So that includes students and parents and staff members and admin and school board members. And then also we had community members like our student resource officer, our police chief, or our city manager even come to our meetings and participate in our discussions. Our main equity council kind of focused on the general of our school, but as we move on throughout the years, we're going to start having separate branches of the council, like just a student group or just a group for a specific elementary school or a specific high school, so that they can really focus on what needs to be done for those specific students, or what needs aren't being met. So with the equity council ideas is that it's a group that's dedicated to evaluating the state of the equity, or evaluating the state of how students or staff members are being treated. A lot of times I know that everyone has, really pumped, really excited about ideas. Maybe teachers are putting up posters, all the same messaging, and we might adopt things in September, but as we, get on through the years or get on through the months in the school year, we kind of forget about it. So this group would be dedicated to making sure that those processes are implemented throughout the school year, and that there's always it's always the right time to bring the issues up with them. It's also a really great resource for students who find things that they want to change, but they don't really know who to go to. They could go to this equity council meetings, or they could talk to the student representative from their high school and have them bring that up, or ask to share their own story. And then it's a good opportunity to go over rules that would affect equity, and to make sure that all the district's implementations, all the district rules and stuff are following the lines of equity. One of the important things that our equity council did is that we had touchstones that we went over every single meeting. So a lot of times when you're dealing with equity, it's, a very personal subject, and we've all had experiences um, that really touched us. So it's important that we have what we call touchstones. So it's like ideas like leaving space for silence. So when, a statement is said, that we, leave space for people to just, be silent in the meeting, or ideas of, respecting, what the topic is for, like ours was keeping the spotlight on race, or other ideas were making sure, everyone's heard, general stuff like that, that go over and make sure everyone knows that everyone's on the same page. So if there are disagreements, that that person isn't, has any bad intent. They're just trying to do what's best, for the school district, and having a discussion with you, especially because students are involved. It was a really nice piece to have these touchstones and recognize people's shared values. So that was kind of a general overview of what an equity council is. I can answer some questions if Kara has some.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I really love the way that your equity council made norms into touchstones. And I'd love to hear a little bit about, how did you guys start on that? Was that an idea that you had, MJ, or that someone brought to the committee? And how did you guys decide on touchstones as a group?
Yeah, I think it was our school district staff that brought the idea of having touchstones with us. Like I said, students often have great ideas, but we've never gone through this process before. So it was nice to have their perspective on, what meetings are run, and it was a good learning experience. But so we had the group go over some traditional touchstones that they've had at other meetings, and asked, some other ideas, and, kind of share it out, because our, the equity council had some really, big players in our school district, some, famous people in our town, the head of our CTE department, or our principal, right? They've been in a lot of meetings, so they kind of know what's important to have during a meeting and what makes a meeting run smoothly. So we were able to talk about which ones were important to us and why they were important. And then what we started each meeting with is having us read a specific touchstone that we were going to focus on. So one that I always picked was, leaving space for silence. I'm a person, who loves to make people feel comfortable, but I also talk a lot. So it's nice to have the reminder of leaving space for people to, process information.
Wow, thank you so much, MJ. I really love the way that that brings together so much of what we talked about, how to make a safe and healthy school, because it promotes us understanding each other, and it promotes us making our understandings of each other more explicit by having things like touchstones that we're all trying to work towards together as a team. I think that's a really beautiful way to build community and create change. So thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. So I'm hoping, Abdi, that you wouldn't mind kicking us off and telling us a little bit about what you think a healthy and safe school looks, sounds, and feels like.
All righty, so let me present my screen real quick. Let's get to it. So this right here is a template for what Uni Month is going to look like, what Uni Month looked like in the Tiger Tualatin School District. And one of our schools was the, the test school for this. Uni Month is a break off of Uni Day last year, which unfortunately couldn't have happened because of the COVID-19, the global pandemic that happened. And what do I feel like a safe school looks like? What do I feel like a school that's, that takes into account all of its students is a school that can have conversations. There's this wise quote, I don't remember exactly how it went, but it said that, our differences isn't what makes us, like angry at each other, what makes us hateful. It's the lack of understanding of our differences. So the point, the real reason behind Uni Month and the whole purpose behind it is to make sure that students actually understand each other, to have the ability to have these conversations in our classrooms and implement them in our schools. So let me quickly go over what the template for Uni Month looked like. So first, let's say we're talking about African American Week here. So there's national scale, effect on Oregon, and then there's a day off, which is advisory during this current COVID-19 times, but we don't know what that'll look like in the future years. Then there's a voices speaker for the group, and then there's a debrief day. So the effect on the national scale, I'm going to show you an example of what this would look like in your school, right? So we have Black and African American Week. This is exactly what the slide looked at our school. Monday, National Historical Perspective. We go over what civil rights are. We talk about like first thoughts. What do you know about the Black experience? Like just starting these conversations, and we know we can't go too deep because a lot of students are online. But as students come back into person, hopefully next year, we'll be able to have more thoughtful conversations with a larger group. Then there's a video, The Fight for Civil Rights. It talks about the history of civil rights and where these conversations are headed. And there's another question talking about what did you learn about the Black experience, right? And then there's Tuesday, right? This is the Oregon scale. We narrow the scale down once again, right? This talks about the danger in teaching the civil rights movement achieved its goals is that it implies to students that there is nothing left to fight for in regards of equity. Then the TTSD, our school district, made a statement about Black Lives Matter, what we can actually do to make our school anti-racist. Showing that our school is an ally of this specific group. And then there's a comparison, right? We compared the civil rights protests to Black Lives Matter protests, what those look like, to provide that comparison beyond the scopes of being like, okay, civil rights happened 60 years ago, we don't gotta care about it. But these two movements were huge movements that have things that are alike and things that are different as well. And then we move on to this Wednesday. It just talks about the art of community, what we can do as a district. And then we narrow the scope, as I said, back to Oregon. This is our district's March for Black Lives. We had our own march. And then there was a video as well on the Portland protests. We were talking about the huge, it was all over the news, 100 days of protesting in Portland, and the conversations that were being had and the questions that can stem off a discussion like that. And then we lead into Thursday, which is the student speaker. So this day I feel like is the most important because national scale, you can be like, brush it off, I don't care. That's in Minneapolis, that's in Louisiana, that's in New York, that's in Florida, that's in Texas. It's not Oregon. I don't care about it. I don't need to care about it, right? But the thing is, and then you narrow it down to Portland. Oh, that's Portland. I don't need to care about it. I'm in my rural city or I'm in a suburban tiger. I don't really care about Portland, right? But once you have a student speaker, the student from your school, the student that actually goes through the things and has the conversations that are happening on this national and Oregon level, then you finally get to understand that grasp of being like, okay, this is not something I can just avoid anymore. There's no excuse of saying this is far away now because we showed you that this is a student that's in your own hallways. And we have the student speaker video, and then we have a conversation and a Jamboard discussion off that. And once again, this is based off the SEL lessons and students being in person and at home, so it was a little bit more difficult to have an in-depth conversation. But as next year, once again, we move in person, we can have those deeper conversations. And this is Friday. This is moving forward. What do we do? How can we help this group? You see, there's a reflection on the whole week. What happened? There's resources, there's where you can donate, what you can watch, what you can read to provide that perspective that you didn't have before. Because once again, as I reiterate, it's not our differences that makes us hate each other. It's a lack of understanding around our differences and our cultures. And then there's resources for safety. What is Safe Oregon talks about, if you want an anonymous tip or anything to provide those avenues for our students. And once again, Uni Month can be completely different to what your school is like. It doesn't have, you don't have to have a week for Black and African American week. Our school, for example, didn't have anything on religion. We just stayed to race, ethnicity, and mental health and sexual orientation. We didn't really talk about religion. But if you wanted in your school or in your district to talk about that, you have 100% free reign over it. I provided you with a template of what our school district looks like. You can take that and fiddle with it whatever way you would like. The one difficulty is, once again, all of these slides are made by people in their respective groups. The anti-Asian hate slide was made by the YALA, which is Youth Asian Leaders of America, which is this club that we have at our school, the speakers and Asian American speakers. So we're not trying to force something on the people of these groups, and we have to let them know that this is their story to tell. So we have that story for them. And then I'm the president of the Black Student Union, so I work with me and the Black Student Union to create the Black Americans Week. And then our GSA at our school helped make the LGBTQ plus week, which stands for the Gay Straight Alliance. So it's not just, once again, we live in a predominantly white state. You can't just be making this. You have to incorporate the voices in the district that are actually going to be making this possible. You have to invite the affinity groups. You have to invite the parents, and you have to make this not just, me and my leadership class thing, but you have to make it a community thing to actually provide the depth that it can make. If you have any questions or anything, I don't know if you can reach out to me, but you can email me or something like that to provide a deeper explanation into what the purpose of Uni Month is.
Wow, Abdi, that was just really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with all of us. I can't thank you enough. I'm looking forward to talking about it even more.
Thank
I'm
you.
wondering, Daniel, if you might be willing to come and share a little bit about what you've been working on, because I think it connects really nicely with what we were just talking about.
Yeah, what I've been working on is somewhat related to what MJ has been talking about. And it's how we can, the overarching topic or theme of it is how we can better address either social bias incidents or create opportunities for students to go about curriculum reform based off of the incidents they see within their schools or districts due to those incidents, and how we can encourage conversations that include student voices. So the thing I've especially been looking at and working on is how we can create a process guiding what I'm calling community conversations for administrators relating to curriculum reform and these reporting social bias incidents. So I've spoken to a lot of students within my district and within the state. Some of them are super involved in the activism within their schools, making change, and some would like to, but are not. And amongst the students that would like to be more involved and have experienced, incidents of bias based off of different, social attributes, either directly or seen them. If they wanted to report these issues, or if they wanted to make change based off of these issues, most times they would like to, but the reason why they have not is the process itself in initiating a conversation with school administrators and creating this change discourages community involvement and student voices. And that's what we found, especially here in Beaverton. A lot of it is the student having to change the system of reaching out in order to make their voices heard, rather than the system being set up in a format so that students can implement and suggest their ideas right off the bat, rather than having to change the whole system. I spoke to another student in Beaverton School District, Apurva, and she has been kind of at the forefront of working on this curriculum reform to add LGBTQ plus into our social studies curriculum here in Beaverton. And she's been working on this for a while. And I asked her about her experiences with this and how it could have been made easier. And something that came up a lot was that as students, we don't understand exactly how powerful our voices are and how much change we can make at this local level, and how much that affects our day-to-day life. So the first part of this and implementing a community conversation and elevating student voices is starts in the classroom, and it starts in our schools. And how we go about this is making it heard and making the system easier for students to suggest their the things that they would like to see implemented within the district. So teaching students about the change they can make, and then show a tangible way in which students can go about doing that. And then, so a community conversation, overall, going into my definition of it, would be an interactive process which brings together members of the community, which would be students, parents, teachers, administrators, any other parties that are involved in this. And the main point of this is it encourages conversations and participation amongst students and student voices and elevating student voices. So in order to improve conversation on these issues and foster community conversations, besides elevating student voices, we need to consistently publish and promote resources that lead to a way, and of course this is all district specific, school specific, but the overarching idea would be that there's a revamped method in which students can either report the incidents directly to a liaison or a staff person within the district or school. And then this is followed up by quickly and in a sincere way, because oftentimes students come with these issues in a place of vulnerability. And then a conversation would ensue with a relevant administrator or any other personnel. Some schools, some districts already have systems like this in place. But again, what we really need to be working on is promoting them, elevating the student voices so they feel more comfortable using them, and take the stress away from students, and implement a system that allows for more easy reporting rather than a system that discourages conversations amongst students and the community. And all of this will help foster community conversations. So thanks. If there's any questions or anything.
Yeah, wow, Daniel, you really got my brain chewing. I think that there's so much that's so powerful in having a conversation and setting up a clear space where those conversations can happen. I know as someone who used to be a teacher and now works in administrating schools, though, one of the things that's really hard is making sure, how do we create a space that actually elevates student voice and welcomes it and invites it, instead of just asking students to come and then having the adults do all the talking, which I think sometimes is one of the fears. I'm wondering, do you have any recommendations, like maybe one or two things that you think an administrator or a teacher can do to help make a community conversation really elevate student voice?
Yeah. So it first starts, thank you so much for asking that question. It first starts at elevating the student voices in the first place within our classrooms. So making clear the impact that students can have within their community, so they feel safe, respected, and empowered when going about reporting or setting up these conversations. And then one of the most powerful tools we have, that teachers have or administrators have, is the fact that students are physically or virtually inside classrooms. So constant reminders of this resource and how it's open to students. Or if a teacher comes to a student, or if a student comes to a teacher and they have an incident like this, or they have an idea, having the teacher being knowledgeable of the systems that the district has put in place to elevate the student voices and then refer the students to that, will help with the student being able to initiate the conversation. And then once the conversation is scheduled and it takes place, the focus needs to be on the student. It can't just be, something the student brought up and then the adults talk about it. As great as that is, we really do need students to get into to report their own findings on these issues and their own experiences as the forefront. So the structure of the meetings should follow, the comfort of the student, of course, an introduction by the administrators or the higher parties in the conversation, and then transitioning into what the student has found, why they came to initiate this meeting, and then hearing voices from all the different parties involved, constantly relating back to the message that the student is bringing the meeting's attention to. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to definitely be taking this back to my own facilitation and work, thinking about, it's not enough to just say that we're centering youth voices. We have to constantly build environments that support that, agendas that support that, and thinking about that in the way that you've shared is so helpful. Thank you again, Daniel.
And
Yeah,
really
go ahead.
quick, it all goes back to the ways that we create a safe school and a safe environment, establishing those norms, creating the support, talking about issues. It all connects back, like we were all discussing earlier, and doing these things elevates the student voices in hopes of fostering more community conversations. So sorry, thank you.
No, that's so great. I love how you made that connection, because it helps support me making that connection to see the ways in which, each of these little pieces that we make the effort to do actually builds a safe and healthy school community broadly. It doesn't just address a hate symbol. It doesn't just address a bias incident, but it supports each of us being mentally healthy and well, active members of our democracy who can be positive and productive citizens. So thank you so much, Daniel. I really appreciate that. Inlay, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind joining us and sharing what ideas you would suggest that school leaders consider and what your experience has been in implementing those ideas and how school leaders can involve students in the implementation.
Of course. So, my main focus is community outreach. As we've been in the pandemic, we realize the importance of communication and how big that is with the constant changes of, are we going back to school? What's the plan? Are we going on hybrid? Are we going full time? Those things happen overnight. And at times it's hard to communicate that message. And with this, we need to make sure that people are getting the message and have that communication, because in many cases not everyone has access to technology. At times that's not an option for them financially, it's not. So we need to make sure what works for your community and what works for your students, the parents, the teachers, everyone. We have to keep everyone in line and make sure they know what's going on. um, Community members need to know what's being implemented. They need to be educated on what is this, because there's going to be confusion going on, because when something new is handed to someone, at times there's fear and kind of stigma. You're like, what is going on? But we need to make sure we are straight to the point and not too wordy, because let's be honest, if you have something that's very long, you're going to lose someone's focus real quick. So you have to be precise and know what you're going to tell them. Another thing is important is, with being clear to the point, it's not left for interpretation. Because in many times, if someone doesn't know what's going on, they hear that something new is going to be implemented, they're going to be kind of iffy and have it maybe as an own bias, like, this is an exclusion of our freedom of free speech. Like, someone is going to try to make that argument, and you need to make sure that this overall is to help create a safe environment for students and teachers, and help them want to go to school rather than kind of back off in fear of what they might face. So that is a very big part. And also seeing how it's going to work in your community, how is this going to be implemented. Having constant feedback is crucial, because what works in the metro area isn't going to work well in our rural schools. It's not the same. We don't have the same resources available. Just hearing Abdi and Daniel and MJ and their experiences, it's so different. The school environment is a big aspect. So making sure you know what's best for your school is important, whether it be the middle schools, the high schools, the elementary schools. We all need to be cautious of what we're doing and making sure we know what we're doing. And having experiences is a big part of, like Abdi, they had the Voices Assembly, and though that would work in his community, necessarily that wouldn't work in mine. And at times, it's hard to be vulnerable and openly say your past experiences. So having the open feedback, maybe it could be anonymous, maybe you want to say your name, go ahead, but making sure you have current students, former students, community members say their feedback, say what they face is a big part, because that could shape the way you go about the situation. Not only that, working with your community members, whether it be your clubs at your school, your Key Club, NHS, your Eco Club, or your gaming club, making sure that you work with everyone in the community to keep them on the loop is crucial. And maybe potentially working with our sports and making sure that we create a safe space in all aspects within education and our schools is a big part. We had to make sure we send out letters, because we know our parents are either going to be checking their email to see what's going on, or checking the mailbox with your report card and being like, what's going on at school? Because at times they may ask us, but we'll just be like, it's nothing, there's nothing going on. But they want to know. And it's big to start the conversation going at home and at school. So communication is a big part. So that's what I've been focused on.
I appreciate that so much. I think communication is one of the big themes of today. It's very clear that it's the way that we build community. It's also the way that we convey information. It's the way that we build change. We really need our connections and our communication to be strong. I'm curious to hear from you, Inlay. I think one of the fears that educators have is that if we can't make, execute a viral TikTok dance in order to get out our information, that maybe students don't care. They don't want to hear from us. And it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is actually they really care. They really want to know what's going on. What do you think would be best for school leaders and administrators and teachers to know about trying to convey information, important information to students?
What would be important is seeing what works best for your students, whether it be making a social media post, having those connections with your student body, have local voices be the ones to say the message, whether it be a grassroots organization in your community, your Kiwanis, working with community members is big and crucial. So just having that constant reassurance is big. At times, students won't be checking the news articles. They won't. They'll be looking on Instagram or Facebook for some of us, at least me. um, but making sure we target all communication aspects, whether it be Instagram, Snapchat, anything works. Sending letters, because the way we go about it is crucial, and not just targeting certain students, but everyone. And at times, that could just be a poster in the hallway, a sign you see at the store, just something. At times, it's those things that you wouldn't expect it to be what captivates someone's attention. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that, Inlay. I think really focusing in again and again on the fact that each school community is unique and each unique community deserves that unique communication that it needs in order to be able to be successful. I think also highlights the importance of partnership with your students. If you're in deep partnership with your students, if you have an equity council and a unity day and you are engaging in curriculum revisions, then you have relationships with students that will help you do that communication you can look forward to and build on. So I really appreciate you highlighting that, the importance of respecting and uplifting the uniqueness of each and every student and student group within a school community rather than taking that one size fits all approach. I'm wondering, in our last couple of minutes together, if anybody wants to come off of mute and on camera to share some final thoughts or reflections on everything that's been said here today. I think we have so much meaty material to discuss.
Yeah. One thing that I always find, and when I circle back to when doing this work, is something I stumbled upon from one of the people that I interviewed when researching these community conversations. And it's that most times hatred, it comes from ignorance, not hate. Right? So we need to continue with our work, like what the Every Students Belong initiative is doing. And we need to continue with our work to elevate different minority voices and to eliminate incidents where people are being harassed or, things like that. Um, and direct more education towards different programs that eliminate and educate more people on the intricacies of different issues and different topics. And the banning of hate symbols is a great first step, but our work is far from over on this issue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Daniel. What a great reminder. Abdi, I see that you popped on. Did you have something you wanted to add?
One, I just wanted to add to a roadblock that we came into in our district and that we're having a rough time with right now is some parents that are a little bit upset, a little bit fussed that their children are not getting what they feel like is a real education. And buzzwords that in their head like critical race theory, which have been fed to them in a negative way. and like if you any district, any person that has to deal with somebody like this or deal with a person like that, just ask them in the end, right? What's the problem with teaching the story of everybody? Like I've never understood that personally. You're a white student, I'll gladly learn their history, so why wouldn't they be willing to listen to mine? And that's really what this is about. It's not about blaming things on people. It's just about understanding each other. um and like we ran into that in our district, so I just wanted to give you guys a heads up.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great caution, Abdi. It's great to remember that there's, it's always important for us to continue striving towards connection, community, and justice together, even though sometimes it will make some people upset. Inlay, I see that it looks like you have something to add too.
Yeah, I do. A big part about this is, as we notice, we're working as a community. We need to be open to new ideas and go about things we usually wouldn't, and work together to do what's best. And even though to some students this might not be an issue they face, it's an issue that their classmates face, whether your community be is diverse or it's not, and your minority population is very small, and at times you don't realize it. um, Students are facing issues, they're facing constant fears, so we need to be sensitive and be aware that others have feelings, and making sure we keep ourselves in check and be open to educating ourselves while we educate others. Because if we just educate and educate, but we don't take anything else in, we're not going to get the effective message out. So, working together and continuing to educate yourself is crucial.
Yes, I love it. I'm going to be learning to understand and to be understood after this. Thank you. MJ, join us. Drop on in.
Okay. The one, final point that I want to hit home that I think we've all touched on is having students and minority groups kind of lead the way and lead the work, with, avoiding tokenization of them. Students know when their voice is just used so they can say that the students were a part of the conversation, or, minority groups are kind of in the same way. And it's, important that when they give you, feedback, or when they give you, suggestions, that those are treated the same as an adult would, or as a member of authority would be treated, because they have really good ideas. I love my peers in my classroom, and I'm sure across the states the same way, that we have young experience, but we always want to help, and we just want to improve our city. So if you just look at us, we have ideas, and we're waiting to just be called on. So making it easier for us to share ideas, and easier for us to kind of help out the districts.
Yes, what a beautiful note to wrap up on, MJ. I absolutely love it. I think reminding ourselves constantly that we are, even though each and every one of you are incredibly exceptional student leaders, and we are so lucky to have you here today, the reality is in every school, in every district, in every community, every single one of our students brings an exceptional wealth of knowledge and unique perspective that if we provide the right conditions and uplift them in the right way, they will make an incredible impact, not just on their communities, but on their schools and the world. And all it takes is us making the efforts to really build healthy and safe school communities for each and every student we serve here in Oregon. I am so grateful to each and every one of you for sharing your perspective on how we can go about doing that. And I hope that our school leaders will take the time to listen and implement everything that you guys have suggested, because I think Oregon students will be all the better for it. Thank you again so much for everything. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon.